Good evening and welcome to the Power of Now. I'm Coach Mitchell.
And I'm Coach Darren.
Tonight, we just want to have a casual conversation about unleashing your potential, talking about the seeds and the gifts that you plant along the way. And what are we really doing with the seeds or with our talents? Are we passing them along or are we wasting them? And it's not unlike a seed that you harvest from a plant or a vegetable, what have you. If you throw it away, you get nothing from it. But if you just take one seed and you plant it, you harvest plentiful. So that is the same or goes the same with our talents. So that's what we want to really talk about tonight. Coach, good evening. Good evening. Thanks for joining.
And talk about the seeds that we're planting in others. Basically, as we go through our day to day, go through week to week, go through moment to moment, when we are interacting with other people, we're really planting seeds.
Mm-hmm.
We've done the last few sessions both on this platform and on our Inside Outside Wellness Wednesday platform. The theme, has been, planting seeds in some variation because it's spring and spring is it's the season for renewal, growth and renewal.
Absolutely.
So, we going with that theme and want to just kind of, think about the seeds that you're planting as you go basically throughout your days. And are you planting them intentionally or are you just letting them happen? And any person who gardens knows that you have to have some intention. Now, we can just throw seeds out there and something will grow. May not be what we want. We could luck up, but something, the forces of nature, pretty much something will grow.
Absolutely. And it's, again, if we think about how we, yes, good evening, Jesse. Thank you for joining. If we think about how neglecting or tossing aside our talents is like tossing away seeds, but it's not really all gloom and doom, right? Because we will talk about how we can nurture and share our talents with others to help not only ourselves, but others grow. It's like once you tell your story to someone, it really empowers for the most part and encourages another. So that is a seed that you are planting in someone else.
Even as you go throughout your day, your smile, your kind words, all those are seeds.
Yeah.
We are all creators and we are all gardeners, meaning we're continuously planting and harvesting different things. Sowing, harvesting. And you've heard me say this before that nature is such a good blueprint for how we should live our life.
Absolutely.
And this is just another, this is just another aspect of how nature can guide us. And in that, we want to really look at what are we planting, and yes, as our title said, what are we planting for tomorrow?
Yeah.
What seeds are you planting for tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna call them legacy seeds.
Absolutely. Coach, you're an instructor,
Mm-hmm.
by training and vocation. So sometimes when you're teaching, all the time you're teaching, you're planting seeds. But I ask you, do you always feel like your message or your teachings are resonating with your students? And if not in that moment, what experiences have you had with your students reaching back to tell you how you really cultivated and changed their lives with your instruction?
Okay. So multiple part question.
Yes, it is.
When I was teaching a lot of technology courses, And just so I taught, I taught professionals, I taught senior citizens, I've taught at-risk teenagers, and the experiences have been somewhat different, but the common thing is what you're asking. Were there moments where I felt like something just I wasn't connecting?
Mhm.
And to answer the question, yes, I have felt that way. And also, there, to the second part of your question, yes, there have been people who reached out to me sometimes years later
Yeah.
uh, to thank me for something that I shared with them and how it made a difference in their life. But teaching is a good example where you're intentionally planting seeds.
Yeah.
It comes with the profession. Uh, you know, but it's also like we sent out uh, the starter kits, the gardening starter kits,
Yes.
and when you're talking to someone who's never done it before, we talk about seed germination.
Mhm.
So it's the same thing. Some seeds germinate in a couple of days, some take several weeks. And it's the same thing when you're planting a seed in someone, in your actions, sometimes it's like right there, you could change something in someone in the moment.
Right.
Uh,
It's sharing a talent.
yeah, sharing time. Or actually, I was thinking, it's just sharing kindness. You doing a nice gesture, you know, uh, to someone in a moment where they may be having a bad day, and you just do something. Again, let's just ask them how are they doing today.
Oh yeah.
You know, where you just planted a seed in them, and as you were, talking about earlier, that seed gets, as we go, seeds get turned over. You plant a seed, it grows something, more seeds come from it. It's the same way. You plant a seed in someone, and if it grows into something good, they turn around and they plant that seed into the next person.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be anything profound.
No, that's not.
I have had experiences where I have been told, and it's funny you use the example of a smile. I've been told that just my smile got them through a day. I sat on a committee, which was it was a depressing committee because it was reviewing denials for health coverage. And one of the committee members said to me years later how my smile actually got them through the day. And I had no idea that it was as infectious as it was. But I refused to be pulled down into the dismal places that, some of the conversations would take. So, just those little small seeds that you're dropping along the way, like those breadcrumbs that you never know are really blessing someone's life, and bringing them through are some of the things that, you know, we can do with intentionality if we make a conscious effort to just be kind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh, what? When it becomes just part of who you are, then you don't have to be intentional per se about it. It's a natural flow. Some people, if you interact with them, like I said, you smile. You have no reason not to smile, so you just naturally do it. Some people, they have to, put the effort to smile.
Does it seem strange to you when you are looking, you're encountering people and they turn away
Oh yeah.
to prevent from it, acknowledging or even making a gesture?
Yes.
I find it so odd that people find it harder to smile. I just think that's interesting.
Yes. There's a term about mean mugging people. And it's like, why? Is it you're putting up some kind of force field?
Yeah.
But then when people do that, and then they'll turn around and say, "Oh, we got to do better." Why things the way they are? Because we
Or the
are,
way we
we
are.
are, yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so you ask yourself, going back to what seeds are you planting, for the future? And again, that's in terms of your day-to-day activity. There is a saying, old saying, and it used to reference those, children are the message that we send into the future, into a place that we will never be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's also about the seeds that we plant because again, when you go past somebody and you smile and you speak and if you're able to follow up and say, hey, how you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Hope you have a good day. Or you can say something with a little bit of humor that may make somebody laugh or chuckle. You may not see that person again.
Right.
But you've changed their energy.
Right.
And
Right.
it goes the other way too,
And even I would say their perception of humanity,
Mhm.
really, because you give them just a glimpse of what hope looks like.
Yes.
Right.
And we see that, uh, often how people are moved, even with all of the people talk about the ugliness,
Mm-hmm.
that people are still moved by that gesture of kindness.
Yeah.
So again, that's a seed. You putting a smile on someone's face, that's a seed.
Yeah.
Uh, so to your other point, no, they don't have to be something huge or profound. We're talking about just planting something because again, going back to gardening, you take one little seed and you plant it, and it just has the potential to create uh, bountiful of, you know, fruits or vegetables.
But even when, you're right. Because what happens is when we are kind or we're showing empathy
Mhm.
towards others or we're sharing our gifts and our talents, people pay it forward.
Mhm.
Because you can't help but think back to, oh, someone did this to me or did this for me. You want to pay that forward,
Mhm.
right? So it's not wasting your talent or wasting your time or your emotions or your creativity when you give that to someone else because
Right.
they're going to pass that on to the next person,
Mhm.
which is what seeds do, right?
Yes, it's exactly what seeds do. And you don't see the seed when it goes through the motions. It will produce something which you may see, but you don't see as it's going through that process. So again, you're planting a seed in someone, some kindness.
Mm-hmm.
You may not see how that plays out. You just trust that again, nature will do what nature does.
Right. And that's so key. You don't want to become discouraged
Right.
in sharing your gifts and your abilities with others. Because you don't see that instant gratification or you don't receive that instant reciprocity. Because a lot of times you're not going to get it from the person you're giving it to, right? Or it's not going to come in that moment.
Right.
And sometimes people can't really reciprocate until they work past whatever's going on in their lives, right? But they will come back a lot of times. I remember I did something so simple, and it was not a display of instruction or anything. I tied my weather coat belt, and a young lady that was temping in the department that I was working in said to me, "Oh my God, how did you tie that like that?" And I showed her how to tie her weather coat belt in a sort of a fashionable way. That motivated her so much that she actually wanted to teach that technique to someone else.
Mhm.
And to me, it was just, it was commonplace. It was just a simple, I'm just tying my belt. I didn't think about it. But that one thing led to another thing. And that other thing that it led to was her asking me to mentor her on another level, not just fashion,
Right.
on another level. And she went on to get her doctorate And she reached back to me on LinkedIn one year and she said to me that it was because of my influence and my taking the time out with her when she was just a clerk that she went on to become whatever it was that, she aspired to be. So I just tying that back to what you said, when you plant a seed, it can be as tiny as kindness or
Mhm.
just showing someone or connecting with someone on a whole other level that you're giving them the encouragement and the motivation to plant their own seeds.
Yes. Now, which again, that another seed could be something like a compliment. And I know we live in a in a world, we're in a space now where, if you're complimenting someone of the opposite sex, you have to be really careful about how you do it, and it's taken away from people really encouraging other people. But when you can
Mm-hmm.
compliment someone, you know, uh, and for men, you'd be surprised when a man gets another compliment from a man. You know what? Like, oh wow, that's a nice suit you're wearing, or that's a nice tie, or I like your shoes, or whatever it might be. You know what? It also uplifts.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you see an opportunity to tell someone, especially if it's a stranger, that's a nice coat you're wearing. And again, I know we're in this space where people are, I'm gonna call it trigger happy. I say trigger happy because every little thing will trigger somebody. But we're gonna ignore those folks and we're gonna try to move back to just what it means to be human.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, take an opportunity to, do a kind gesture, to compliment someone, to put a smile on someone's face, because those are all seeds that you are planting, like I said, for tomorrow. And tomorrow's kind of, figuratively, meaning you're planning for the next moment.
Right.
So when a person walks away from you, you know, all you gotta do is say, think how you feel when it's reversed, when you're the recipient, and someone unexpectedly gives you a compliment about something that you, might be something you do every day, you wear a certain outfit a certain way,
Yep.
no big deal to you, but somebody
Yeah.
else, boom.
Like, wow. And it inspires them.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it motivates them to actually step up their game
Yes.
another notch.
Another
Notch. So I think that is just so incumbent upon us to remember that we were given gifts and talents to pass on to others, not just to use them for ourselves, but to motivate and encourage others in their walk in whatever it is that they aspire to do. And you never know who's watching, right? You never know who's watching and who may need you to help them draw out their talents and their gifts so that they can too plant seeds in others, because we all have gifts that we need to share.
Mhm.
We all have gifts that we need to share.
Yeah, that's why, I was thinking, you want to always show up for yourself. What you want to kind of show up the best version of yourself. And when you just mentioned you never know who's watching, and it's a story I've told many times. Was early on in my career, working in a job where I was constantly interacting with people. It was a job that I really didn't want. It wasn't because of interacting. It's just not. I was looking for something
Uh-huh.
bigger and better at the time. But it was strange because I had two people, two men, uh, come, one man right in the middle, rush hour, complimented me and said, I don't know how you do it when it's just hectic here, but you're always kind, you're always smiling at people. But I actually had another man who came who worked for General Motors, wanted to offer me a job. And he came back and said, listen, let me know when we can talk, He said, I've come here a couple times just to observe you,
Right.
Because how you interact really caught my eye. And again, you're just busy doing your thing, but who you are you're showing up, and it was something that always stuck in my mind. Yeah, you have to be mindful of who you are almost in every moment. Like you don't want to become, you know, overly paranoid about who you are. But when it's just you just being in your own flow, it's how you are, that's your natural state of being, then you don't have anything to worry about.
Mhm.
It's like you said, you smile, I have a habit of, I always look people when I walk by somebody, I try to make eye contact. If I don't think that they're going to, say anything, then it's okay. Not everybody does that, but I do try to make eye contact because I believe in, and I've said this before, you can't change the world if you can't acknowledge a person next to you. So I don't
Absolutely.
want to hear about, oh, we need to do this, we do it. If you haven't gotten to a point where you can speak to the person right there next to you, then you'll never be able to do anything that's going to change the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And not only that, if you can't tolerate or embrace the person that's next to you, you right along with that, you
Yes.
can't change anything
Yep.
about the world,
Hmm.
your environment. So it's important that we remember that we show up
Hmm.
fully present, and that we acknowledge others for who they are
Yes.
in that moment, because you just never know. We are very empathetic, and we're givers, and serving others is part of who we are.
Hmm.
I know I'm a servant. I'm a servant leader at heart. I am a very empathetic person, and sometimes to a fault of my own, that I may sometimes hurt myself because I am so giving. But I want to make sure that other people feel valued.
Hmm.
I think that's one of my gifts, making sure other people feel valued and empowering people to just show up and be their very best, and planting seeds of, wherever you are, of whatever gift that you can give. And it doesn't always have to be something that is, again, so profound and prolific. Again, it's giving someone a smile when they just seem to be down, or acknowledging a person's emotions, you know. And as a leader in organizations, whether it's corporate or, religious sectors or what have you, whatever space you're in, I think we are all leaders in our own right,
Hmm.
right? And respective of how we deal with people. People. If we all look at ourselves as leaders, then we hold that responsibility that there's something that we have to do when we show up to make sure others feel secure and safe,
Hmm.
so that they can be their best selves, right? So I think it's just important that we give ourselves the space and opportunity to give others the space and opportunity to be themselves and share their gifts and talents with others.
You touched on, something just now in terms of from a leadership perspective and expanding leadership, not just from again a corporate environment or military environment. I thought that, but just every day in our life, at some point, we are expressing some form of leadership, and it actually naturally starts with yourself. Are you a leader of yourself? And if you're interacting with other people, what are you showing leadership qualities in those interactions? And one of the things you just mentioned is, are you helping that person or giving that person the space to be their best self? Mhm. Uh, in order to do that, you have to be fully present. Mhm. Uh, and you have to, like I said, your your seeds are your words and deeds. So are you helping that person? Mhm. And it doesn't have to be where they are even aware of it. It's not like they may be coming to you
Right.
for you know, guidance, but you know, as a leader in that moment, what your role is going to be.
Right.
You know, you and I, talk about in terms like as a parent,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in your, with as a parent, your interaction with your children, are you, yeah, are you taking a role of leadership?
Mm-hmm.
Are you creating space for them to become their better self, they're a better human being, or are you kind of taking the easy road and just again going with the flow? Because being a leader is hard.
Oh yeah.
Uh, it is very challenging, but it is something that again it brings out the best in us as we work to bring out the best in others.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that you're always constantly giving instruction.
No.
You can be an advisor. You can be, um, most importantly, I think, being a listener. So knowing when to advise and knowing when to just allow a person to just blossom,
Mhm.
to have that conversation and just allow them to tap into their own potential,
Mhm.
right? And I think, when we're planting seeds in others, it's more or less empowering someone to pull, well, it's helping them to pull out what their capabilities are,
Mhm.
right? And that's not always instructing, but allowing people to find their way
Mhm. Mhm.
and helping only when you need to,
Yes.
right? And that's planting seeds in and of itself.
And again, it's planting seeds, and what do seeds do? We plant seeds for growth, and that's what it is. You're planting a seed to allow that person to grow. Um, I could use another gardening analogy, where or gardening metaphor. Remember when we had the tomato and we opened it up and the seeds were starting to sprout.
Oh yeah.
It was like the tomato was starting to grow from
Inside.
inside.
Yes.
And there's a couple of things about that. At first, I look back to a point in time where if I had seen that, not knowing, I would have thrown the tomato out. In that moment, realizing what the tomato was doing. Tomato was really, again, growing from the inside out because the conditions, all right, that the conditions were set for it to initiate the growing process. By opening up the tomato, basically we were allowing it to continue its own growth. Mhm. So you ask yourself, are you allowing people, first of all, are you
Creating an
just,
environment.
yes, an environment so that they can grow? Because it has to come from within,
Mm-hmm.
for it to be really authentic, to come from within. Are you creating that environment for that to happen? So that when the opportunity comes and it's opened up, they will just grow really without you. There is an old adage that says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And then it says, when the student is really ready, the teacher disappears.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta think about that. You're there to lead them, to create the environment, but you don't stay. You don't have to. Like I said, you
Because
plant the
you've
seeds.
imparted everything they need to know
Yep,
to grow.
to grow. And now it's time for you to let go. Uh, which is again, you planted the seeds, you know, uh, germinated, they started growing from within, and then when they're ready to totally blossom, you don't serve, you go someplace else, you go pollinate something else, you go plant seeds someplace else.
Absolutely, because that is really a metaphor for life,
Mhm.
to go and grow,
Yes.
to go and grow. And what other way, a better way to do it than to tap into your talents, teach someone to the extent that you are capable and have them go off with that knowledge and add whatever, you know, supplements that they need to add to pass that on to someone else.
Yes. And that's, again, that happens naturally when you don't really get concerned, as you said before, about getting something back, you know, because then you just naturally allow, your natural lives have to plant as many seeds as possible. You don't worry about what's coming back, but it will come back.
Yeah.
You know, and you really want to get to that place where, yeah, that's just your natural state of being.
Right, because when you're sharing your talents with others, if your sole expectation is to get something back from what you're sharing in that moment, then it defeats the purpose.
Right.
Because there's no such thing as instant growth.
No.
There's no such thing as instant growth. And that instant gratification of, or if you need instant gratification or accolades for what you're imparting or what you're sharing, then there's something on the inside of you that you need to work on.
Yes.
That you need to work on. Because when you are sharing and giving of yourself and your creative gifts, you're not really in that moment. If you think about a time when you have been sharing and you've been in that space of creating and sharing with others, you feel fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
You feel gratification just by giving of yourself, not because that person said thank you or they came back and gave you, you know, a pat on the back. It's because you're sharing that natural, organic talent and creativity with someone else. You're planting that seed, and you know that you're in the vein, and they're going to go off and take what you've shared with them and build upon it.
Yes.
You know, so
again, another good point, because this goes back to saying earlier, why you wouldn't get to have it always showing up for yourself, showing up for yourself and allowing yourself to just, you know, if you can get to that flow state, it's great, you know. But when you do it, yeah, you're not looking for anything in return. Your satisfaction comes from just being in that space. That goes back to saying we're all creators. So when we get that opportunity to create, you know, and creating does not necessarily mean it has to be something tangible. You know, but when in that state, that mode of creation, it brings out the best in us.
right.
You know, and I'd say it doesn't have to be a masterpiece. It could be anything, but it's something about being in that space. And when we're in that space and we're able to create something in the moment that we can share with someone else, it also uplifts us, which then is shared in our interactions with others.
Right. And I mean, you can just look at a real time example, even just doing these vignettes. They're not really vignettes because they're longer than 15, 20 minutes, but 3 minutes. But just doing these and, you know, having people watch from afar, but coming back even months later to say, you know, I watched that particular video on X subject and or X recipe that you may have shared, and you know, when we do our Inside Outside on Wellness Wednesdays. And I actually used it or I applied something that you guys said on the power of now. And it really worked. You know, it really worked. So I think that, you know, that's when you know that regardless of what happens in the moment, that the talents and the creativity and the gifts that we share have long-term impact.
Absolutely. So yeah, you don't want to look or really expect that when you do plant a seed, that you're going to see the growth in that moment. Because as we're planting real seeds, like I said, they go through a germination process. They have to have the right environment. So, you know what? You could say something to someone, and it just doesn't register in that moment because it just wasn't the right environment. And that right environment might be the state that they're in. That's part of the
Right,
environment.
right.
You know, they may get home. It may be the next day. It may be a week, and all of a sudden they go, "Hold on, somebody said something." Now it clicks. You
That's
have the
right.
aha moment.
That's right.
I mean, we've all had it. Talk about how growing up, as a teenager, a young teenager, my mother would, say something to me. It was like, yeah, whatever. And I think most parents may have experienced this. And then, you know what? I was in this program, and all of a sudden, somehow it
Things
resonated.
just started to
Yeah,
click.
things started, and I don't always look at me like, really, you know. But again, it wasn't the right environment, for the seeds that she was planting uh, to germinate. And we have that all throughout our life. So don't feel, you know, don't feel like you've been rejected, or if you do something and people don't immediately respond.
Hmm.
And I know that's difficult because as I explained to someone, we in terms of look at the whole system,
Hmm.
we do when someone does something for us, we do owe it to the system, all right?
The greater good.
Yes, the greater good to show gratitude. Yeah. And it's not that that person may do it for the expectation. It's if we're receiving something, it's our contribution back into the system. Because guess what? If that person does something, they get the self satisfaction. But when you express your gratitude, they get a double dose of that satisfaction. So that gives them the energy to go do it again. You now have the energy to hopefully go do something positive, and it begins to spread.
But you know what, Coach? In having conversations with people, especially when you're coaching and you're mentoring others, I find it interesting that a lot of people don't realize that they too have gifts and
Oh yes.
talents that they can share with others.
Mhm.
Um, what are some of the things that one or two things you could suggest to people who feel like they don't have anything to offer, that can really tap into who they are?
Well, it's not a if they're in that space, it's a pretty good chance they may have been in that space for a long time,
Hmm.
and it's hard to say. I can give you the simple activity. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Right.
What happens when people are in that space where they don't know who they are, and we've had a topic on who
Hmm.
are you, is because they never take it to time. People talk about being authentic, yeah, I gotta be authentic, I gotta be real. You don't even know what being real is, so go on. Being real is being real with yourself. And that means being truthful with yourself. What are the things that you truly like?
Hmm.
And one of the things years ago I used to, when I had the store Field of Dreams years ago, people would come in and talk to them, and they would go on and they would tell you about all the things that they don't want. I don't like my job. I don't like this. I don't like that. And I would always ask them, well, what do you like? And they would go speechless. Like, I don't know. So I would throw this question: what would you do if money was not an object? Because we are conditioned
Hmm.
that the majority of our life is really geared for money.
Right.
And then for some people, they would get that look like, wow, I really don't know it. But it would get them to start thinking.
Thinking, right.
No. So if you don't know what you like or what you want to do,
Hmm.
then I would say, ask yourself, if you won the lottery, you know what, tonight,
Yes,
you know,
Lord. Yes.
if you won the lottery tonight,
Uh-huh.
what would you do? And most people say, I quit my job. Well, that's easy. All right. But what would you do going forward?
Hmm.
And people are like, well, I would go here. But you know what? That's going to get empty. That's
Right.
going to come.
Exactly.
There has to be
That's crazy.
something that you want to do. Now, having the luxury of winning the lottery
Mm-hmm.
would give you the opportunity to go find or discover yourself,
Right.
which that's the blessing in and of itself. You know? So the first thing I'll say, you have to be honest. Oh,
Go ahead, Coach.
yeah,
Go ahead,
you
Coach.
you have to be. You have to learn to be honest with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and the honesty comes from that voice that's inside of you
Mm-hmm.
that keeps coming up, and you know it. You ignore it, you shut it down, you will try to rationalize, you know, make bargains with it or explain it away.
Mm-hmm.
But it keeps coming. You know, gosh, I just really like to do this.
And I think sometimes it's having a conversation, even with those that are close to you, to help you discover what your strengths are.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you don't really know what you're contributing
Mm-hmm.
and what you're really strong in until someone says it, you hear it, and it's like, oh, and you stop and you process that. I think, I've had numerous conversations with people to talk, about their attributes, some of the core contributions that they've made and pulled out their strengths. And it's like people have aha moments when you're having a conversation. But I think, like you said, when you're being transparent with yourself and you're peeling back those layers, sometimes it's best to have a conversation with others because we can be our own worst critics.
Yes.
Right. And when we're our own worst critics, we can't see our potential. We can't see what value we add or the seeds or gifts and talents that we may have that can be a positive attribute that can have a positive impact on others. So I think having that conversation with others, especially in your circle, will help you determine what your real strengths are so that you can really get into that space of tapping into your talents and your creativity.
Now, let me ask you this, Coach Mitchell. How about the person they come back and they find out what their strengths are, but their strengths are what they like to do. So it's like, yeah, I went through the exercise, or I already know what my strengths are, but that's not what I like to do. Like, have you ever come across or are you ever had experience where I'm good at this, but that's not what I'm good at it for, I don't know, whatever reason, I, yeah, what would you suggest to a person if that's where they are?
Yep, I've had that conversation with a few people. One top of mind that they are really good at what they do and they don't know that. And I'll just put it out there. They're a teacher because everything that, if you ask them anything about this particular area, they walk you through it instructionally, step by step. And they're so natural at it, but they would not, for the life of them, ever walk into a classroom or in an instructional setting. So, my advice is to find a place and space that you're comfortable in your gift, and share that talent in that space. You don't have to be in a structured environment to share your talent.
Right.
So I think that, to answer your question, I think a lot of people who really know what their gifts are, I think it's the environment in which they've been sort of boxed into
Mhm.
that they don't like. It's not the gift,
Gift.
it's
Okay.
the environment.
Okay. You know, excuse me, as you were just sharing that, we were probably thinking of the same person. uh, Somebody who's really talented, and I joked about this person, that when they do something, they walk you through and explain everything to you,
Step by step.
step by step, and as as an instructor, I can appreciate that. Uh, I don't even know if they are aware that they're doing this, that they're basically teaching in that moment. Because, as to your point, if you say, have you ever said to teacher, no, I'll never do that, but I like when you said the being placed in the environment, because I think that's really key, because being in the right environment will also change our perception of certain things, because, we have, say, again, with teaching, in any role, I think it is, again, it's a noble opportunity, and if you do it for a living, it's a noble, yeah, I think it's a noble profession,
Hmm.
you know. But when you're in that space where you are teaching and you're doing it naturally, I think sooner or later things are going to conspire and it's going to put you there where you are going to become de facto, a professional. Some way, somehow, you're going to become, because that's who you are.
Uh-huh. I think, just using that scenario, even doing these videos, you know, it's so much different than having a conversation or coaching someone one on one, because you're like, oh my God, people are looking, they're critiquing,
Mhm.
they're judging. So it may come across, oh, they're choppy or fragmented in conversation, but our conversational tone when we're interacting with others is so much different, because that level of we're not giving it thought, we're just flowing in the moment.
Yes.
Whereas we're not giving a presentation, we're sharing our gifts and our talents, and it's very organic, it's natural, it just flows, right?
Yes.
So the environment shifts how you actually interact and how you present or move forward. So like with that person who teaches naturally, gifted
Mhm.
in that area of expertise, the talent is just it was just born, it was a born talent. Literally, they are teaching, but when you put them in that environment of instructional mode and you say, well, now you are a teacher, teach. It's like, no, I'm not a teacher. I'm not a
Yes.
teacher. But they do that. They live and breathe it every day.
Yes.
So it's I think putting a title on it as well is sort of challenging to some.
Because now putting that title on it, it creates this whole perception or perspective or image of what that means.
What that means, yeah.
And then that's what you shy. That's what the person probably shies away from.
Right.
And the thing is that also I'm not good enough for that. I'm good enough doing what I do. I'm a master. I'm great,
Yes.
but I don't think I'd be good at that. So again, that's part of the having a self-talk and really ask yourself, look at what is it that you don't like, or that you may be afraid of.
Right.
Uh, because there's something about, I think we all feel this way, to see any talent go to waste, you know. Uh, so to see someone like, oh, you'd be really good at this. But I also get it when someone says, yeah, but I just, that's not what I want to do, Uh, it's like, what, I had spent all those, years as a, business and technology consultant and instructor. And I remember having one friend, especially nice to be a software developer, like, you should go, do programming. I was like, but man, I don't like it.
Right.
It was not something that I ever chose to do. I came to a time where it was a great profession. You fall into it, you start doing it. You I won't say make the best of it because it wasn't that, deep of a struggle.
Right.
But you get to a point where you go, yeah, but that's not what I really want to do. But you're good at it. Yeah, so that's why I can understand someone who may be at that crossroad where their strengths may not align with what they want to do. So maybe you look at going, you say, peel back the layers
Mm-hmm.
on the strengths, and maybe those strengths just they exhibited themselves in that particular profession. But if you go deeper, there's really your strength is much deeper than that. It just came out like say, came out when say me being a software developer now, which basically came to a point of it was just finding solutions to problems in a very logical, structured way. Which
Methodical way,
yes,
yeah.
which anybody who's if you ever coded, that's programming will get you to a point where you go through a very methodical process in terms of solving your problems. Now, not every programmer can do that, but it is one of the habits where, yeah, your strength wasn't really software, development.
Mm-hmm.
It was really problem solving, which is why made me a great corporate consultant because
Yeah.
people would go all over the place. No, you solve it 1, 2, 3, boom, in and out.
Yeah, you are very methodical in your approach and, strategic in your thinking.
Mhm.
So that's why you make such a great strategic expert.
Yeah.
So,
Now, so again, to get back on point, really just want you to look at, what seeds are you planting? And when you look at a colleague that you ain't working with, there's an opportunity. Are you planting seeds uh, to help them grow and planting seeds to help yourself grow? Like I said, um, our last Power of Now session where this was the theme, we talked about what seeds are you planting in your mind? It's
mm-hmm,
basically what seeds are you planting within you? Now I'm talking what seeds are you planting in others?
mm-hmm,
Because in order for us to transform individually and collectively, we got to start planting some, you know, different seeds.
absolutely.
And why not now? Uh, why not after, I wouldn't say after this session, but if you're next to somebody, and somebody's in earshot, you know what? Hey, how you doing? uh, what? Give somebody a high five. Then for what? Just because, what? Don't look for reasons. Just be it.
Absolutely. And, you think about, based on what you just said, we can't always be in the space of planting seeds of discord.
Yes.
We have to we have to be better. We do know better.
Mm-hmm.
We do know better, but it just seems like humanity is just going astray.
Mm-hmm.
But if one person takes that one good seed of encouragement and plant it in someone else, then we can start to build back the confidence in others and in the ability of others.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are good. Humans are good. We just have to tap into that goodness.
Yes. And I think, everybody's become apprehensive about putting themselves out there.
Yep.
You see it all the time, and whether if it's in the corporate environment, it's, well, I'm not going to give them anything more, nothing more than what I'm paid for. Yes. If it's in relationships, nobody wants to give anything more if they're afraid they're not going to get something back.
Right.
But what happens is you really end up limiting yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and that becomes who you are. You know, uh, you know, and again, there's another old adage which says, I think it's a Chinese adage that says, how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you start limiting yourself in different parts of your life, now think about it. You got two parts there. If you're limiting yourself at work and you're limiting yourself in your relationship at home, where do you have the opportunity to blossom?
Mm-hmm.
You really become just a limited individual because how you do one thing is how you do everything. You'll start cutting corners and coming up short in every area of your life because you condition yourself on a subconscious level that I'm not going to give anything more.
Yeah. And it's so unfortunate. You just hit on a really key and critical aspect of limiting your growth
Mhm.
with, individuals. When you show up at work or, at your place of employment and you don't share your knowledge because you feel like holding on to it is job security,
Mhm.
you're really actually stunting not only your growth, but the growth of those around you. And the more you impart, the more knowledge you share, the more knowledge you gain. Because the
Mhm.
more you talk, someone else is going to be able to help either build upon what you already know or help you get to the next level because of what you know. So I think, one thing that people have really gotten wrong is holding on to what they know. Because if you're not sharing your knowledge, if you're not planting those seeds, like you said, you can't, there is nothing to harvest.
Right.
There's nothing to harvest if you're not planting.
So actually, with that, I have been trying to challenge some of my contemporaries, uh, you know, or trying to engage them in meaningful conversation
Mm-hmm.
because you want to be around people where you can have not, excuse my language, not bitch sessions, all right?
Hmm.
You know, not where you're just gonna go in and you're just going to complain. And and you'll get this, especially in most jobs, people call the old water cooler,
Yeah.
where you just vent about everything that's wrong. When I'm talking about those conversations, I'm talking about conversations that are going to challenge the way you think, you know what, uh, what, kind of conversation that may challenge your intelligence, your intellect, your beliefs, and it's not about arguing, and you don't have the conversation about opinions.
Right.
No, we don't want opinion. We want, again, a very thought-provoking conversation. You know, uh, I would always say that's very solution-oriented because we have got conditioned to always talk about the problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't really. There's no growth in just focusing about the problems.
Right.
So you want to get around people and ask yourself right now. Think about when's the last time you really had a really thought-provoking conversation with a family member or a friend about something, you know, that wasn't a session where you guys are just venting
Mm-hmm.
or talking about everything that's wrong. When would you have a very really a heart-to-heart, mind-to-mind conversation, and both parties walked away and felt better
Mm-hmm.
from the experience.
Yeah.
So ask yourself that question and challenge your family and friends, to talk about something uplifting,
Yeah.
something potential. So
Absolutely. And on that note, Coach, listen, we challenge you to, as Coach said, really tap into your gifts and your talents to really challenge yourself on what it is that you can do to plant goodness in the world.
yes, plant those seeds.
Plant those seeds because if we don't do it, then who?
If not now, when?
If not now, when? So, Coach, any last parting thoughts?
Yep. Just go out there and plant seeds to grow something good.
That's right. Use your gifts to plant seeds of goodness in the world because it just takes one person at a time to really make things better. So listen, I'm Coach Mitchell.
And I'm Coach Darren.
Join us next week, hopefully, as we continue to explore ways to help you unlock your full potential and live a life of purpose and fulfillment. Plant those seeds because you are not seedless. You have the potential for endless possibilities because of who you are and how God made you. You have the ability to impact the world. Let's do it together. So until next time, remember, there can be no now if you no next if you do not start now. I'm Coach Mitchell.
You know, which day?
Join us tomorrow night for Inside Outside on Wellness Wednesday, where we will be bringing you some helpful tips and suggestions on living a healthier lifestyle to help you along your health and wellness journey. Have a wonderful and amazing evening.